Welcome to the session. Whenever the companies are going to collect the data will be collected in different forms. Hence, it is very important for the companies to take care and to handle the data in a clear format. In this particular session, we are going to talk about what is structured data and what is unstructured data and how companies need to take care and handle this particular data for further analysis. Without delay, let us go into the session 1 of discussing about what is structured and unstructured data.
Hello everyone, welcome to the session on structured data and unstructured data. In this particular session, we are going to cover about what is data, how to acquire data, what is the use of data, what is big data, what are its characteristics, and how to identify the structured data and unstructured data along with its characteristics. And last but not the least, we will be discussing about what is the difference between a structured data and unstructured data. Hence, going further into this particular topic right now. Okay, so what is data? Now, if you just see here, there is a particular table representing the size of the house, the number of the bedrooms, and the price. So by looking at this particular table right now, I can say that if the size of the house is 523 and the number of bedrooms is 1, then the price of the house would be 115. Now, there are certain columns and there are certain rows here. Now, each column is giving me some sort of information, and in the same way, each column is representing the information. Right? So hence, I can say that a data is the one which gives you some sort of information. And hence, the data will be unique to each and every company. And this data will also help you to find it out if at all, if I just give you some sort of information, is it possible to predict something? Right? Now, the moment after you understanding this particular data, now let us look at some more figures or some more information right now. If you just look at this particular picture, by looking at this particular picture, I can say that it is an X-ray, which helps you in identifying some sort of defects. In the same way here, if you just see here, I can say that this is a picture which is being displayed by an e-commerce platform for the sales of t-shirts. And by looking at this picture, I can say that this is a store which sells some sort of kid items. Or by looking at this, I can say that this is a store where you get only the products related to toys. Right? Now, the moment I look at each and every picture here, I'm going to get some sort of information. Right? So hence that is called as a data. Now, how do I acquire data over here? There are 3 ways of acquiring the data. One way is through manual labeling. Whenever I say manual labeling, you might have been seeing in supermarkets right now or in the malls right now. The moment you buy the product, they just scan your barcode and they just make a list of the items whatever you have bought and the prices accordingly, right? So they do. Sometimes if the barcode cannot be scanned, they manually enter the data over there, right? That is one of the ways of acquiring the data. And the second is through observations. So whenever I just through some sort of experiments, I want to literally stand over there, observe what would be the temperature, observe what would be the pressure, and I need to record it out. So based on the observations, you will be making it out a data over here. Or you can download from the data set. Right? Now, having an understanding of how to acquire the data here. Now, who will be using the data? So the moment you come across the data usage, okay, there is a probability of usage of the data also and misuse of the data. So hence, there are 2 people who are involved in taking care of the data. One is the IT, that is the information technology department, which is present in the organization. Or if you have artificial intelligence department is fine, or the R&D department is fine, right? So usually data engineers will be doing this particular job. So these are the ones who are held responsible for the utility of the data over here. Now, whenever they are taking the data here, sometimes the data will be messy. That means you might be collecting large information, the huge volume of the information without understanding whether this will be useful for the further analysis or not. Right? So hence data can be messy. Sometimes might be capturing incorrect labels, or sometimes you might not be in a position to get some sort of records. For example, let us assume you wanted to capture the age of the customer. So sometimes people deny to tell the exact age, or they deny you the age itself. So hence there might be a chance of having the missing values too. And there might be multiple ways in which you'll be collecting the data. You might be taking the barcode scanner, you'll be manually entering the data, or you'll be taking some sort of pictures what they have put in, right? So hence you'll be collecting the data in different forms, either through pictures or audio or text. But before you take this particular data into further processing, it is always better to clean the data, right? So if you don't clean the data, you'll get out what you fed in, right? So hence these are points that are to be taken care whenever you are using the data. So hence the IT and the AI professional is very much required to be. So IT professional will see how he can collect the data and how he can store the data, whereas the AI and R&D will be looking into whether you're capturing the right variables based on the analysis, right? Now, having a thorough understanding of all these concepts, in the next session, we are going to learn about what defines big data. Till that, happy learning. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back to the session 2 of structured and unstructured data. In the session 1, we have learned about what is data, what are the different ways in which a data can be collected, and who will be using the data, and what is the care that is to be taken once you are processing the data, right? Now, before we drill down into deeper concepts of structured and unstructured data, let us try to understand a terminology called what defines big data. Before entering into the definition of a big data, let us take a scenario. Right now, if you just see, we do have different social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, where the moment you just open those apps and read the content over there, you're going to get some sort of information, right? And in the same way, we do send across the emails. And nowadays, for everything, you just get an email where you need to, again, the companies are trying to collect the data over there. And sometimes what we do whenever you watch a cricket or whenever you watch a news, the weather report or something, there will be some sort of visual representations which will clearly give you some sort of information. And you do also have, if you just go to a hospital also carries some sort of information where they do have the patient details over there, right? And the facial recognition process, which is prevailing right now, okay, where you need not carry a boarding pass, where the moment you just go and scan your face, it identifies who you are and where exactly you're traveling to. We use mobile phones where we have the exchange of messages through SMS, WhatsApp, and so there are many other, messengers which we use it. And there are companies which feed in the data with the database. And all these are being stored on a cloud here. If you see this, these are all the data, but giving you some sort of information, but in a different form. So hence, whenever you are collecting the data in different forms and giving you some sort of information, then it is being termed as big data. Now, having understood the scenario of what is big data, let us go and look into the characteristics of big data. When can I say that, yes, the data what I possess can be termed as big data? In order to term this, there are 4 characteristics which we popularly call it as the 4 V's of big data. That is volume, variety, veracity, and velocity. Now, what does the volume define? So in a second, for example, if you just take the platforms of Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, in a second, there are some trillions and gigabytes of the data in which it is being generated. That is, there is a huge volume of the data that is getting generated within a day or within a span of certain time period. That defines the volume, one of the characteristics of big data. The variety. So in the previous scenario, we have seen that the data is being collected through images, through text, through columns, through spreadsheets, right? So that means you have a different varieties of collecting the data. Right? So that is called as the second V, which is the variety. And coming to the veracity, how can I trust my data? What would be the discrepancy in the data? Are there any faults in the data? Are there any misrepresentations in the data? Comes under the veracity of the data. And the velocity is, so within a second, how the data is getting generated, okay, falls under the velocity of the data. So if you see here, Google search is going to generate around 50,000 search engines or search topics within 1 second. There are 4,000 tweets which are occurring within 1 second. Right? So whenever a data is capturing all these 4 V's, then it is being termed as a big data. Right? Now, having understanding the concept of big data right now, in the next session, we are going to learn about what is structured data and what is unstructured data. Till then, happy learning. See you in the next session. Thank you all. Having an understanding of what kind of data it is or what data is, what are the characteristics of big data, we are going ahead and learning into the concept of what is structured and unstructured data. Structured data is one which has a complete relational database. So that means it is a pre-labeled data. The columns will be defined earlier and hence it has a clear structure. Okay? You can identify the columns based on the labels. Whereas the unstructured data is collected in the form of text, images, numbers, audio files, and video files. Hence, it cannot be formatted into a spreadsheet model by clearly defining the columns and the rows. Hence, it will be collected in a different forms. It might be through a Word document, or it might be through a PNG file, or it might be an Excel or a PPT. Whenever the data is being collected in different forms, which is being dominated by text, images, and the figures, then that particular type of data is called as unstructured data. Hence, to conclude upon, structured data is one which exactly fits into a rows and columns with the predefined labels. Whereas unstructured data is one which is a qualitative in nature and hence it cannot take the spreadsheet model and would be collected in the form of different forms. Now, having an understanding of what is structured and unstructured data, let us go ahead and look into what are the characteristics of structured data. Now, structured data can be clearly defined. Hence, it has a clear rows and columns. And whenever you have a structured data, the searchables of the data will be very clearly known. Structured data is mostly quantitative in nature. Structured data is often stored in data warehouses. Structured data is easy to search and analyze, and apart from that, it is very easy to extract the relationships too. Structured data exists in the predefined formats. Now, looking into the examples of the structured data, let us take a sector of healthcare. Let's see how the structured data exists in a healthcare sector. A patient medical history, which can be labeled mentioning the name of the patient, what was the name of the patient, what was he treated for, how long he has been treated for, and how, what is the cost of the treatment, what were the drugs that were being given to him, all comes under your structured data. Medical billing is again a spreadsheet where you can just feed in the data in Excel format and extract the results. The medical insurance, which an insurer can claim for. So all these are the examples of structured data. In the next session, we are going to look in detail about what is unstructured data. Till then, happy learning. Let us understand about unstructured data right now. Unstructured data is the data which is captured in the form of images, audio files, video files, PDF, Word documents. Earlier, we have discussed that structured data is one which cannot be placed in a spreadsheet model by giving clear labels to rows or columns. Such type of data is called as unstructured data. Moving into the characteristics of unstructured data. Unstructured data is usually stored in its native format. They have clear format in which the images can be stored. For example, if you just look at the CT scan reports or the ultrasound images, those are being stored under different format, which has been captured in that particular system. And the unstructured data is more qualitative in nature. That is, it is being mainly dominated by text. It might be having some sort of descriptions which are involved. Unstructured data is stored in data lakes. Data lakes are the one which has the storage capacity in the native systems for processing of the images, audio files, and video files, or any kind of unstructured data. They go with your SQL format. Unstructured data requires more work to process and understand. If you just take an example of a cancer patient, the images captured identify the cancer. Every image will be unique over here. And every image gives you a much more information, telling about the intensity of the cancer and understanding about that particular tumor plays a very important role. Hence, understanding and processing the unstructured data is more complicated. Unstructured data can be variety formats. As we discussed right now, if we just go ahead with the cancer detection, you may need the data related to the CT scans, the data related to the endoscopy, the data related to their pre-medical histories, the data related to the intensity of the cancer, the data related to what kind of treatment is to be given. So it will be captured in different formats. Right? These are the characteristics of unstructured data. Let us go ahead and have an example of unstructured data. If you just take the same healthcare sector, the unstructured data can be the discharge summary of a patient, which will be clearly written in a handwritten where you will be having a complete text documented format. Hence, we can say that this is one of the examples of an unstructured data. As discussed, it might be the photos, images, CT scan reports, which also provides you some sort of information. Hence, coming ahead with this understanding of structured and unstructured data, we are going to discuss about what is the difference between the structured and unstructured data. In order to understand the difference between the structured and unstructured data, it is evaluated based on 4 components. That is structure, type of data, storage, variety of formats. If you look at the structure in which the data is being captured, a structured data has a clearly defined columns, whereas in unstructured data, you don't have a clearly defined columns. For example, whenever I just take an example of a mall, which is involved in sales, I can capture the data saying that the customer ID, the number of items bought by the customer, and what is the cost of the item. What I can do, I can clearly label my columns over here. Such type of data is called as structured data with a defined rows and columns, where sometimes the big columns are being predefined and hence it becomes a relational database. For understanding the unstructured data, let's take the same cancer detection. I do have the MRI reports. I do have the CT scan reports. I do have X-ray reports. So all these reports are weak. Hence, it cannot be formulated in a clear structured format like this, by defining the rows and the columns. Hence, that is called as undefined rows and columns. And they cannot be predefined. So that is the difference between the structured and unstructured data whenever you take the structure of capturing the data into consideration. Now, coming to the type of the data that is being captured. As we discussed earlier, it carries the number of items. It can be 4. The cost of the item might be $100. So what am I doing here? I'm representing the rows and columns in a very clear measured format. So hence it captures quantitative data. The moment you have the quantitative data, it can be easily processed and analyzed. By looking at this table, I can say that customer 1 has got 4 items which cost around $100. Whereas if you just look at this particular data like X-ray or CT scans, it is completely dominated with quality or nothing but your text. And it is very difficult to process and analyze unless you read the entire document. This is the difference between the structured and unstructured data when it comes to the type of data. Coming to the storage capacity or storage. It requires a data warehouse and will be stored in the form of a relational database. It is being stored on data lakes, in which we have discussed earlier, a couple of minutes back, and the NoSQL format. In which formats does this particular structured and unstructured data are being captured? Generally, structured data as it is into a spreadsheet model, generally we use Excel or CSV files. Whereas if you just look into unstructured data, it uses a PNG file, PDF file, audio, video images, or GIF, or sometimes a Word document, or sometimes a PPT. All these are the different varieties in which the unstructured data is being framed. I hope by this end of the session, you might have had a clarity about what is structured data and what is unstructured data, what are its characteristics, and the difference between the structured and unstructured data. See you in the next session. Till then, happy learning. Thank you all. In the last session, we have learned about what is structured data, what is unstructured data. Now, we are going to look at an in-depth examples of structured and unstructured data. Moving ahead with this, just for a small recap. So, when you look at the structured and unstructured data, the moment you look at the examples, it carries structured data is in a spreadsheet model where you have a well-defined rows and columns. So hence we say Excel is one of the example of a structured data where you can store the data in rows and columns. Google Sheets, customer data, phone records, all this fall under the structured data. As we know that the unstructured data cannot be fit into the rows and columns, the textual data or the social media data where you're going to write some sort of reviews or comments, tweets at times, or the phone calls, audio files, video files, all this fall under the unstructured data. Now, let us look at one particular scenario right now. Let us take hospital, as one of the case for understanding the structured and unstructured data. And if you see here, with respect to this particular solved assignment, a hospital wants to understand the data that needs to be captured to perform the healthcare data analytics. The hospital has aimed to give the better care at the lowest cost. In order to carry out with this particular case study to identify what would be the better care that can be given at the very lowest cost, the hospital wants to capture the data at first. So hence the proper statement here is, in order to give the better care to the patients, what kind of data or what type of data is a very important role, and from which department we are capturing it, and can you segregate based on that, which department will be capturing what kind of data. This is the problem statement. Now, if you just think about the hospital might be having different departments. So the moment if a patient enters the hospital, you will ask him to you will try to find out what is his pre-medical history. Might be, does he has hypertension? Is he diabetic, right? So what you're doing here, you're identifying the pre-medical history, or you're identifying the demographics of the patient right now. If you just look at the CT scan, right, you may want the patient to undergo a CT scan report. Sometimes the patient may undergo MRI reports. You may suggest for the diagnosis, of the lab results. So there might be some sort of prescribed drugs, or there might be the discharge summary the moment the patient gets discharged. The echo, which will be capturing the heart rate of the patient. Now, if you just look into this particular scenario, these are the different departments which will be involved in order to get a treatment, in order to give a treatment to a patient. Now, if you see here, the pre-medical history will be captured in a spreadsheet model, because the moment you enter in, I will enter the details of the patient, mentioning that whether he has been diagnosed with, whether he has hypertension, whether he has diabetes. So like this, what I'm doing here, I'm trying to capture the data in an Excel format. So hence, whenever you are capturing for the pre-medical history, you will be taking in a spreadsheet model. The CT scan is an image, so it just gives you the multiple images. MRI report is an image. Then the same way, whenever you come out with the lab test result, the technician will give it in a spreadsheet model. So the prescribed drugs in a spreadsheet model. The discharge summary, which is completely a textual document, which is a summary of the entire treatment what the patient has undergone. If you just look at the heartbeat rate, it is a graph. So whenever you are trying to understand the patient, you need to analyze all these reports together, right? So hence, now if you just look at this particular solved assignment over here as an example. So based on this, which falls under the structured data, which falls under the unstructured data. Now, to answer this, the spreadsheet model, the specified rows and columns, or the pre-defined labels of the lab results all fall under structured data. And in unstructured data, we have images, text, audio, video, graphs. So if you just look into this particular example, image, text, and graph fall under the unstructured data. Right? So this is how we can able to identify what type of data can be captured and how we can divide the data into a structured and unstructured data. Now, you completely know what is structured and unstructured data right now. So hence, you need to do some sort of assignments by looking at certain problem statements which are being given to you. Now, before you go into the assignments, now let us go ahead and look at the example, of a relational database. Now, the relational database, just for a review, like customer data which is being collected in the form of rows. First column may contain customer name, job ID, his qualification, his income, right? So like this, if you're capturing in a spreadsheet model, then it falls into a structured data. Now, having understanding of this, now you need to complete your assignment. So in the next session, I'll be just explaining you what is to be done in the assignment. Till then, happy learning. So coming to the assignment session right now. In this particular assignment session, you are going to deal with one of the assignment problem where you are supposed to solve it. Now the assignment problem is, as you are the owner of the retail store and required to collect data to perform customer analytics. Identify what kind of data does the IT professionals need to capture. So whenever you are identifying the type of data that is to be captured, it can be structured and it can be unstructured. So what you need to do here is, if you are mentioning that the structured data is to be captured in a spreadsheet model, you need to mention minimum 10 columns in an Excel, labeling them what are those 10 columns that the retail store need to capture. And if they are capturing the unstructured data, so what kind of unstructured data can be captured over here, right? I hope the assignment is clear. The assignment is clear to everyone. So hence, you are supposed to do an Excel sheet, and in that Excel sheet, clearly label the rows and the columns by clearly giving the label and the type of structured data that a retail store can capture. So this is the assignment question, which you need to do it and submit it up. Thank you all. See you in the next session. Till then, happy learning.